So here's the problem that I face. The problem is that I rack my brain every day to try to connect with you, to try to find something that will be really outstanding, right? Like you'll actually click on this. That is the goal of what I want you to do is actually look into and listen to some of the things I have to say because I think it's really important. I'm going to talk about something in 1 second. But on the flip side, much of my life and much of your life is very boring. It's pretty ordinary, right? And so you want to have these, maybe you listen to podcasts, maybe you listen to, um, maybe you watch YouTube shows, or maybe you read the news, watch TV. And the reason why you're doing that is trying to escape from this boringness that we often have, right? Like the same old that we often experience that we go through. So I'm on one side trying to get you to click and listen, um, because like that's the goal of building a platform. But on the other side, it's like my life is not that important. It's not that, um, I don't know that much. I don't have anything to give, right? Like that is the key thing is like, well, what is it that I actually am different than anybody else? And I don't think that there actually is anything. The only thing that I can do is to tell you my life, tell you my experiences. So this is where I'm actually going to go into. This is where if I was to lead with this, you would not care. You would not listen to any of it. But I think it's very important to think about your finances. Right now, everybody is just like, "Ah, I'm gone." But no, I think it's pretty important to think about that. Um, and not in the sense that you're thinking about is like, budgeting and all that kind of stuff, but it's just like kind of dreaming where you're going to go to and what you're going to do and planning out, okay, what is it going to take to actually get there? I think it's glorious that, um, people actually plan this out. This is the conundrum that you're gonna face if you do things right, is that you're gonna plan it out and you're gonna do a good job, and then when you get there, you're gonna feel guilty for actually getting there and doing everything that you should do. But, in the meantime, planning things out and taking a step back, realizing that there's lots of things in life that take 30, 40, 50 years to actually get to where you want to go to, right? So thinking about retirement immediately as soon as you start working when you're in your 30s or even in your 20s and planning to what does that mean to actually get there, right? Like, what is there? What does that look like? And then how do you actually get there? What is the plan to get to where you want to go to? I hope that many of you are in your 20s and 30s. And I hope you just do. There's a simple thing that you could do, a simple rule. It's simple, but it's very difficult, and you will struggle to actually do this. And I'll tell you a way to actually do this. Right? So the goal is whatever you make in, you're going to freak out when you hear this, is to take 15%. You could even take 10%. That's fine. That will work just fine. It's totally good. And invest it, take it away and save it. You don't even have to put it into a fancy investment fund or anything like that. You just save it for now. Once you get enough money, you can start investing it right at the beginning. It doesn't matter that much. But what I want you to get is that habit of taking some money away, of using it and not using it and doing that on a regular basis. And I know that you are like freaking out right now. There's two ways that I've heard that are really good. One of the ways is like, this is probably what I would do. There's three ways. There's a cold turkey. You go, and that actually works if you can do it, but sometimes it's very difficult to do if you have a family. Um, or you have different obligations. It doesn't matter where you live. This works in Germany as it does in Brazil as it does in America or Canada or any place. But what you want to do is, first of all, you could do that, but it requires you to have some buy-in. Another thing that you could do is to take and frankly, that's what me and my wife did. We're pretty good with how we do things. But another way that you could do it is work up your way. Have a plan that this year I will sock away. Maybe you want to begin with 5% of everything that you make, right? And you sock that away. But then next year I'm going to wrap it up and aim for 6. Right, and slowly go all the way up until it might take you 5 years to get to the point where you are at 10% that you're throwing away. Or, it feels like throwing away, you're investing it, right? Like you're putting it into a savings. Um, so there's that way. Another way that actually, this is really interesting, and I think it's just logistically hard to do, but I've seen this, is every time you get a raise, instead of taking that raise, you put that into your investment account, right? So every time you get a raise, which works great for some jobs, other jobs, it doesn't work so great. Um, and that's a really nice thing because your life doesn't adjust as much as the salary does, right? And you just put that away. So, why do you want to do this? It's because most things in life that are important take decades to build, right? It's not something that, yeah, I want you to look at like everything that's important in the world around us. It's not like it was built in a couple of, and if it was built in a couple of years, it makes international news, right? Like it is the thing that everybody fixates on. It's like, why the hell did that happen? Well, there's lots of reasons for why the hell those things happen. But what I want you to focus on is like, okay, this on an average person, or if I'm a below average person, which is probably most of us, what would it take to actually get there? Right. So likely it will take you 30 years, right? Likely it'll require you to spend a great deal of time to get there. Right. Um, and then you work backwards from there. Right. So one of the things you might notice is that it might be hard to actually save that certain amount, right? It might be very difficult. And so in that case, you might have to start looking at some of the practices that you do and sort of adjust those practices. Might be, maybe you do go back to work, or maybe both family members actually go to work. And I'm not, it's wonderful to have two people at home, but maybe that's not going to work out all the time. Or maybe instead of having, alcohol, for example, on a, weekly basis, which I think a lot of people do, it's totally normal. Um, maybe you choose to do it once every other week, right? Like you have a good, night out on the town or whatever, right? Like that's expensive. So you look for those things, or, smoking, you try to say, hey, instead of, and I know that's very difficult to do. Some of these things are very, very difficult to do. Instead of saying I'm going to smoke every day, it might be I'm going to smoke every other day, right? That's like, for me, it would be very difficult to give up coffee, but, um, it's possible, or you can look for other ways to adjust. Right, it is possible. So instead of drinking coffee out all the time, as one does, uh, we make our own coffee. Many days we'll make it, right? And the coffee machine is running. Um, I just want you to think about these things. Making adjustments, small adjustments, really does add up in terms of moving the needle. I know a lot of people don't believe me, but that's what a lot of this stuff is. It's not about making a whole ton of money. There's that. The salary does matter, but it is also about making small adjustments in your life so that you can save these things, right? Or you can do these things in the long run. And it's making this trade-off always. It's always this trade-off of, the pleasure today for something in the future. And most times, the things that are really good take decades to actually build and get to, right? But that's the end goal. And that's where I want you to understand is that, yeah, this is not interesting, quote unquote, to talk about. Nobody's going to be super excited. Yeah. Let's talk about finance, personal finance. It's going to be the most exciting thing in the world. No, it's about doing things that require us to plan for a long time, that are very difficult, and they're painful in the moment. You don't like to do it. And it's this constant fight in your mind, with sometimes with other people, and you finding that sense of self where you can do this. You have the courage inside. You have the internal strength to do it. Right? Like, that's what it means. So, for example, that's the reason why I talk about PhD stuff a lot, is because that's what it means to do a PhD. It's like a lot of pushing the world back for a long time in the effort of trying to get to something that's probably going to take you 20 years to get to or longer, and just keep pushing those things back. Right. And that's the end goal. And I know it's many of you will hear this and you say, why the hell would you do that? I don't know. Um, I don't have a good answer other than the fact that, it's a challenge, right? I think I like challenges. That's really cool. But also it's like, it's getting to the moment of doing something that you always wanted to do. And there's some sort of satisfaction in that, of getting to that particular moment. And when you get there, try to enjoy it, try to have fun, try to live in the moment as best as you possibly can. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.